This is the car. It was not this car, but this model was the car I was talking about. Remember I told you, it's like, I got in this guy's car and it had a big engine and a 4-speed and it smelled kind of weird, but you knew this car was ready to rock.
For nearly a decade, Ian Roussel built some of the wildest cars on television and made Full Custom Garage feel like a window into a world most people never got to see.
Full ride, half Thunderbird. Working with clients is always interesting. Somehow the word got out that I can build anything, and people are lining up to see that.
It was his garage, his builds, and his rules. Then, after years of doing things his own way, Ian made a decision that caught fans off guard. He left the show, eventually closed his California shop, and moved across the country to build a new chapter of his life. But Ian never disappeared, and now he is eventually explaining why he made those choices. So what actually happened to Ian Roussel after Full Custom Garage, and where did his new path take him? Join us as we uncover what really happened to Ian Roussel, the kid who never needed a plan. Ian Roussel grew up in a small town in California called Sunland. His dad loved cars, and little Ian spent a lot of time next to his dad, watching him work on engines and metal. This was basically his whole childhood. Some kids grow up playing sports. Ian, on the other hand, grew up with a welding torch in his hand. Some stories about him say he was already welding go-kart frames out of scrap parts by the time he was 8 years old. Long before any TV network knew his name, Ian was already known in a small world. The world of hot rod builders, the people who take old, beat-up cars and turn them into something wild and beautiful. He showed up in a few small films about that world called Back from the Dead, Hot Rod Documentary, and its sequel, Back from the Dead 2. He also appeared on a show called Car Warriors. These weren't huge TV hits, but they put Ian's work in front of the exact right people that needed to see his work. The die-hard car fans who would remember his name later on. Those old films later got packaged up into an Amazon show called Custom Cars, Lead Sleds, Back from the Dead with Ian Roussel. The whole idea was the same one that would make him famous later. Take junk out of a junkyard and turn it into a real, running hot rod. Here's the thing about building things this way. It's slow. There's no shortcut for that kind of patience. But it also means that everything Ian ever built was truly one of a kind. Nobody else could have made the exact same thing, because nobody else was in his head, figuring it out piece by piece the way he was. Then, in 2014, his big break came. A show called Full Custom Garage started airing on a channel called MAV-TV, and here's what made people fall in love with it. Ian never used a blueprint, not once. Most builders on TV work off computer drawings, fancy plans, and a whole team of designers. Ian just looked at a pile of scrap metal, an old car, and old motorcycle parts, and figured it out as he went. He'd grab a piece of junk from a friend's yard or a swap meet and somehow turn it into art. Think about how hard that actually is. Most people, when they build something, need some kind of plan first. A drawing or a set of measurements to follow. Ian skipped all of that. He'd just look at a piece of metal and somehow see what it could become. A group of car fans talking on the Antique Automobile Club of America's forum said, this show, out of all the car shows on TV, bothered them the least. That might sound like a strange compliment, but if you've ever sat through a car show full of fake arguments and fake drama, you know exactly what they meant. This show felt real, and real is exactly what people kept saying about it, over and over again, for years. But what made Full Custom Garage feel so different wasn't just the lack of fake drama. It was what happened behind those shop doors. So how did one man build roughly 180 vehicles in the middle of the Mojave Desert? And how did that tiny shop keep producing for nearly a decade? 9 years in the desert. If you watched Full Custom Garage, you know the place where most of it happened. People called it the Desert Ranch Shop. It sat out in the Mojave Desert, a hot, dry stretch of land in California. And it was about 2,600 square feet, roughly the size of a decent house. Over the years, somewhere around 180 different vehicles got built inside those walls. Now imagine every single one of those 180 vehicles as its own little story. A customer shows up with an idea, or sometimes barely more than a wish. Ian looks around his shop at the piles of parts he's collected over the years and slowly figures out how to turn that wish into something real that can drive down the road looking like nothing else on it. Do that once, and it's impressive. Do that 180 times in the same shop over years and years, and it starts to look less like a job and more like a calling. Working out in the desert isn't easy either. The heat in the summer can get bad enough to make metal too hot to touch by noon. The temperature swings hard between day and night. And if you need a part in a hurry, you can't just run down the street to grab it. Nobody agrees on exactly how many seasons the show ran. Some say 7 seasons by the year 2022. Some say 8 seasons and 69 episodes total. The show also changed channels a few times, starting on MAV-TV, then moving to a channel called Velocity, and later becoming part of Motor Trend. That kind of jump between networks kills a lot of shows. It didn't kill this one because the fans stuck around regardless. Behind the scenes, Ian had a family cheering him on too. He married a woman named Jaime, who works as a nurse and also loves cars. They have 2 kids together named Jace and Ava Love. Having a wife with a steady income from nursing probably helped more than people realize. TV paychecks don't always come in on a regular schedule the way a normal job's paycheck does, so having that kind of stability at home matters a lot more than fans watching from their couch might ever think about. As the show grew more popular, Ian and Jaime started their own merchandise line, selling shirts and gear to fans. Ian also showed up in person at car events, like the Spokane Speed and Custom Show, where he'd sign autographs and talk with fans face-to-face. That kind of connection, meeting people in person, doesn't disappear just because a TV show ends. And that turned out to matter a lot later on. There was also a second show, this one on Amazon, called Custom Cars, Lead Sleds, Back from the Dead with Ian Roussel. It took some of his older documentary footage and mixed in new material, giving people who'd never seen his cable show a whole different way to find him. The show followed Ian and other builders around, from car clubs in south-central Los Angeles to a well-known shop up in San Jose. Between the TV show, the streaming show, the merch, and the fan meetups, Ian built himself a real, multi-part business. A lot of TV personalities put everything into just one show. If that show ends, their whole career ends right along with it. Ian never did that. He had the flagship TV show, sure, but he also had the streaming show, the merch line, the live appearances, and the loyalty of a fan base who showed up in person to shake his hand. Spread out like that, no single piece of his career could take him down completely, even if one of them eventually went away. That kind of thinking, building more than one leg to stand on, turned out to matter enormously once things started to change. Because a few years down the road, that TV show was going to end. And how it ended is where this story really gets interesting. Leaving before anyone could push him out. Here's how most reality TV shows end. Ratings go down. The network quietly decides not to bring the show back. And the star finds out their show is over at the same time everybody else does, usually from a headline online. That is not what happened to Ian. Ian stepped away from Full Custom Garage in late 2023. And here's the important part. He did it before the network had even decided what was going to happen to the show. He didn't wait to get fired before walking away. That timing turned out to be pretty smart, whether he planned it that way or not. About a year later, in November of 2024, the studio behind Motor Trend shut down a bunch of automotive shows all at once. A lot of other hosts got caught completely off guard and were left wondering what they were supposed to do next. Ian wasn't one of them, because he had already started building his next chapter. Of course, once fans noticed the show had gone quiet, rumors started flying around. People wondered online if Full Custom Garage had gotten canceled. Instead of staying silent and letting the rumors spin out of control, Ian made a video and told everybody the truth himself. It's called, "Did Full Custom Garage Get Canceled?" Ian Roussel shares the real story, and it came out in November of 2024. Ian had finally put the cancellation rumors to rest. But the truth he revealed was far bigger than whether the show was coming back. Something much more permanent was already happening behind the scenes. So why was Ian leaving the Desert Ranch shop behind after everything he had built there? Closing the shop that built him. In September of 2024, Ian posted another video. The title said it all, "The End of an Era." Full Custom. Ian says goodbye to the Desert Ranch. In it, he told his fans, plain and simple, that the Desert Ranch shop, the same shop where he'd built around 180 vehicles, the same shop where so much of the TV show got filmed, was shutting down for good. Here's what makes this closing so interesting, though. The shop wasn't struggling to bring in customers or losing money at that point. By every account, it was still doing just fine, right up until Ian decided to close it. So, why did he decide to close up a thriving business? Imagine doing the same physical job, in the same brutal heat, in the same building, for 6 straight years, all while a camera crew watches your every move and a network expects a finished car by a certain deadline every single time. That's not just running a shop. That's running a shop and being a TV star at the same time. It's 2 full-time jobs stacked on top of each other, day after day, with barely a break in between. Eventually, almost anybody would feel that weight building up. For 9 years, the Desert Ranch shop wasn't just where Ian worked. It was, in a lot of ways, who he was to the public. Fans didn't just picture Ian Roussel. They pictured Ian standing in that shop, surrounded by scrap metal and half-built cars, out in the middle of nowhere. Walking away from that place meant walking away from a huge piece of his own public story. Not just a building. That's a much harder thing to do than simply closing up shop and moving down the street. Leaving the Desert Ranch meant leaving behind the place that had defined Ian for nearly a decade. But he wasn't walking away from the work itself. He was taking control of how that work was seen. So what did Ian build when there was no longer a television network calling the shots? Starting over on YouTube. Even before Ian officially left TV, he'd already started building something new online. He launched a YouTube channel called Full Custom Ian. The channel description explains it simply. After 9 years on television, Ian wanted to show his fans the real, behind-the-scenes side of his work, without a network standing in the middle, telling him what he could and couldn't show. Starting that channel before actually leaving the show turned out to be a smart move, whether Ian planned it that way or just got lucky. By the time Full Custom Garage stopped making new episodes, he already had people watching him somewhere else. There was no awkward gap where fans forgot about him, no long stretch of silence where people wondered if he'd vanished for good. He simply kept showing up, just on a different screen. The videos on that channel look nothing like a TV episode. Some run 18 minutes, some run over an hour. TV shows have to fit everything into a tight time slot, with commercial breaks chopping things up along the way. That means all the messy, real parts of building something from scratch usually end up on the cutting room floor because they don't fit neatly into a 30-minute show. On YouTube, Ian doesn't have to hide any of that. Fans get to see the whole process, mistakes and all. And honestly, that's exactly what people say they love about it.
Remember, this is not moving with the axle. So this is gonna come up. So maybe we just bend that thing. Maybe we just bend it naturally by hand. Let's see what happens.
It feels like the same raw, honest energy that made his early work special, before 9 years of TV polish smoothed some of those rough edges away. There's something almost freeing about that, both for Ian and for the people watching.
I don't want to mess with this because I think this looks good, right? Let me take a step back and check that. Got some highlights, right? You got this is a stamped high ridge right here.
On TV, every single build has to end with a clean, tidy reveal, because that's what keeps viewers watching through the commercial breaks. In real life, building something is never that clean. Things break. Plans change halfway through. Sometimes a whole idea gets scrapped and started over from nothing. YouTube lets Ian show all of that, the good and the messy, without worrying about whether it fits into a network's idea of what makes good television. It also gave him a way to make money without depending on a network paycheck. He sells parts and gear through his own online shop that is listed on his Facebook page. Add that to the ad money from YouTube, and Ian basically rebuilt the same kind of business he had during his TV years, minus the TV part. That freedom to build at his own pace, on his own schedule, ended up taking him somewhere his TV career never could. Ian had finally built a setup where he controlled the work, the money, and the schedule. But then he made another major move. Why leave the Mojave after all those years? And what was waiting for him in a brand new desert shop in Arizona? A new desert, a new chapter. After closing the desert ranch shop, Ian didn't leave the desert right away. He kept working out of a smaller shop, still out in the Mojave. But, according to more recent reporting, he's since packed up and moved again, this time all the way out of California, into a brand new desert garage in Arizona. He's been showing fans an ongoing project out there, a custom Volkswagen Beetle build, giving them something to follow along with, the same way people used to follow along with builds at the desert ranch. He hasn't disappeared from the car show world either. Ian is already planning to show up at big events in 2027, including the Grand National Roadster Show in Pomona, one of the most respected hot rod shows in the whole country, plus another show called Starbird in Tulsa. Planning that far ahead, more than a year out, reveals something important. This isn't a guy quietly fading away. This is a guy still building a name for himself in the exact world that made him famous in the first place, just without a TV network telling him when and how to do it. Reports also mention he's already set up a reliable way to tow his builds to these events. A small detail, sure, but not the kind of thing someone bothers with unless they're planning to actually show up. That kind of long-term planning matters too, because it says something about how the wider custom car world sees him now. The people who run shows like the Grand National Roadster Show don't just invite anybody. They invite builders whose reputation still means something, even years after their TV show stopped airing. Getting invited to a show like that isn't about being famous. It's about still being respected by the exact people who know real craftsmanship when they see it. Almost 10 years after Full Custom Garage first went on air, the guy who never used a blueprint is still building the exact same way he always did. He's just doing it in Arizona now, on nobody's schedule but his own. Was Ian Roussel just lucky with his timing, leaving right before a wave of cancellations hit the whole industry? Or did he simply know it was time to choose freedom over a steady paycheck before anyone could take that choice away from him? And after hearing the real story, does the quiet, independent version of Ian's life surprise you compared to what some of those wild videos online have been saying? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.